Imagine a country with 6 million people, a functioning government, its own currency, a military, passports, elections, universities, a thriving capital city. Now imagine that country doesn't officially exist. No seat at the United Nations, not on most world maps. 0 countries recognize it. For 33 years, this nation has existed in international limbo. Welcome to Somaliland, the most successful country that technically isn't a country. A place that broke away from one of the world's most failed states and built something that actually works. But just days ago, something changed. For the first time in over 3 decades, a country recognized Somaliland, and it's triggering a geopolitical earthquake in one of the world's most strategic regions. This is the story of the nation that refuses to disappear, even though the world pretends it doesn't exist. What is Somaliland? Somaliland sits in the Horn of Africa, on the southern coast of the Gulf of Aden, directly across from Yemen, right at one of the world's most important shipping choke points. It's about the size of North Dakota, 6 million people, and a coastline along the Red Sea, one of the busiest maritime routes on Earth. The capital is Hargeisa, a city of over 1 million people. Modern buildings, bustling markets, traffic jams. It looks like any other developing city in Africa. Somaliland has its own currency, the Somaliland shilling. Its own passports, though most countries don't recognize them. Its own government with a president, parliament, and constitution. And here's what makes Somaliland remarkable. It holds regular democratic elections, peaceful transfers of power, opposition parties that actually win sometimes. In a region known for dictatorships and chaos, Somaliland is a functioning democracy. While the rest of Somalia has spent decades as a failed state warlords, piracy, Al-Shabaab terrorist Somaliland has been stable, safe, boring even. But here's the problem. According to every country on Earth until very recently, Somaliland doesn't exist. It's officially part of Somalia, a breakaway region with no legal status. So how did we get here? The breakaway, 1991. To understand Somaliland, you need to understand Somalia's nightmare. In the 1980s, Somalia was ruled by dictator Siad Barre. A brutal regime, corruption, repression, and a genocidal campaign against clans in the north, what is now Somaliland. Between 1987 and 1989, Barre's forces killed between 50,000 and 200,000 people in northern Somalia. Entire cities bombed, mass graves, a deliberate campaign to crush rebellion. The North Somaliland suffered the most, and they never forgot. In 1991, Barre's regime collapsed. Somalia descended into civil war. No central government, warlords carving up territory. Mogadishu became a war zone. On May 18, 1991, the northern clans declared independence. They called themselves Somaliland, reviving the name of the former British protectorate before Somalia was created. Here's the historical argument. Before 1960, there were 2 Somalias, British Somaliland in the north, Italian Somalia in the south. Both were colonies. When they gained independence in 1960, they voluntarily united to form the Somali Republic. Somaliland's argument, we united voluntarily. That union became a dictatorship that tried to exterminate us. So we're revering the 1960 merger. We're going back to being separate. While the rest of Somalia tore itself apart, Somaliland quietly rebuilt. Clan elders negotiated peace. Former fighters disarmed. A homegrown reconciliation process, no UN peacekeepers, no foreign intervention. By the mid-1990s, Somaliland had what Somalia didn't, stability. Today, you can walk the streets of Hargeisa safely. Businesses operate, schools function, the government pays salaries. It's not perfect, corruption exists, poverty is real, but it works. Somalia, meanwhile, has had no functioning central government for over 3 decades. It's ranked as one of the most failed states on Earth. So why doesn't anyone recognize Somaliland? 33 years without recognition. Why? The answer comes down to one principle that terrifies governments around the world: precedent. Africa's borders were drawn by European colonizers, straight lines cutting through ethnic groups, tribes split, natural enemies forced together. When African countries gained independence in the 1960s, they faced a choice: redraw borders based on ethnicity or keep colonial borders. They chose to keep them. The African Union and the international community decided that colonial borders are sacred. Change them, and you open Pandora's box. If Somaliland gets recognition, what happens to Eritrea? What about Biafra in Nigeria, Catalonia in Spain, Kurdistan across the Middle East? Every separatist movement on earth would point to Somaliland and say, why not us? Then there's Somalia itself. Despite being a failed state, Somalia still has a seat at the UN, still has embassies, still has international recognition. And Somalia insists, Somaliland is ours. It's a breakaway region. Recognizing it would be supporting the breakup of Somalia. Somalia lobbies hard against Somaliland recognition. It pressures African countries. It uses its UN seat. It threatens to cut ties with any country that recognizes Somaliland. Somaliland, meanwhile, has spent decades lobbying, sending delegations, hosting foreign visitors, trying to prove it deserves statehood. But the world said no, over and over. 1 year became 5, 5 became 10, 10 became 33. Somaliland became the country that exists in every way except on paper. Until now, why Somaliland matters, strategic. Here's what makes Somaliland valuable, geography. The Red Sea is one of the world's most important maritime chokepoints. 30% of global container traffic passes through. Oil tankers from the Middle East, goods from Asia to Europe. At the southern end sits the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, the gateway between the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean, just 18 miles wide at the narrowest point. And Somaliland sits right there, prime real estate. Somaliland has Berbera, a deep-water port on the Gulf of Aden. During the Cold War, the Soviet Union used it as a naval base. Then the US did. Today, the UAE company DP World is developing Berbera into a major commercial port, a competitor to Djibouti, which currently dominates the region. But ports mean more than trade. They mean military access, naval bases, power projection. And right now, the Red Sea is contested. Houthi rebels in Yemen are attacking ships, disrupting trade, threatening the global economy. Any country that wants influence in the Red Sea needs bases, allies, strategic partnerships. That's why the UAE is invested in Berbera. Why Turkey wants influence in Somalia. Why Egypt is building ties across the Horn of Africa. And it's why Ethiopia, a landlocked country of 120 million people, desperately wants access to Somaliland's coast. Which brings us to what just happened. The breakthrough: Israel recognizes Somaliland. December 26, 2024, a bombshell announcement. Israel became the first country in the world to formally recognize Somaliland. After 33 years of international rejection, Somaliland finally got recognition, not from its neighbors, not from the African Union, but from Israel. Why? For Israel, Somaliland solves several problems. First, the Red Sea. Israel ships its goods through the Red Sea, but Houthi rebels in Yemen backed by Iran have been attacking Israeli-linked ships. If Israel has a friendly base in Somaliland, it gains military options, port access, intelligence gathering, a foothold in a region dominated by its enemies. Second, the Abraham Accords. Israel has been normalizing relations with Arab and Muslim countries UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, Sudan. Somaliland fits this strategy, a Muslim region in Africa, desperate for recognition, willing to partner with Israel in exchange for statehood. Third, Ethiopia. Earlier in 2024, Ethiopia tried to recognize Somaliland in exchange for Red Sea access. It didn't happen, too much regional pressure. But Ethiopia and Israel are close. Israel sees Ethiopia as a key partner in Africa. Recognizing Somaliland helps both. Ethiopia gets Red Sea access through Berbera. Israel gets a strategic ally. Somaliland gets recognition. It's a win-win-win. Unless you're Somalia, Egypt, Turkey, or anyone who opposes Israel and Ethiopia. Which brings us to the backlash. Regional reactions, chaos erupts. Somalia was furious. Its government condemned the recognition as illegal, an assault on sovereignty, a violation of international law. Somalia recalled ambassadors, threatened to cut diplomatic ties with any country that follows Israel's lead. The African Union rejected the recognition, insisted on respecting Somalia's territorial integrity, said Somaliland is not a state. Egypt and Turkey, both regional powers, opposed it. Egypt sees Ethiopian influence in the Red Sea as a threat. Turkey backs Somalia and has troops there. Even China weighed in. Beijing supports Somalia and opposes any breakup of African states because it has its own separatist issues with Taiwan and Xinjiang. Arab League countries that don't recognize Israel condemned the move, called it Israeli interference in African affairs. The Horn of Africa is now more tense than ever. Somalia vs. Somaliland, Ethiopia versus Somalia, Egypt versus Ethiopia, Turkey versus UAE, and Israel right in the middle. But in Hargeisa, people celebrated. After 33 years, someone finally said yes. It doesn't matter that it's controversial, it's recognition. And Somaliland hopes others will follow. What happens next? So what now? Will other countries follow Israel's lead? Scenario 1, the floodgates open. Some Western and Eastern European countries might recognize Somaliland. Countries less concerned about African Union politics. Small nations looking for allies. If even 5 or 10 countries recognize Somaliland, it gains momentum. Embassies open, trade increases, international legitimacy grows. Scenario 2, the status quo holds. Most countries refuse to follow. The African Union pressures members to reject recognition. Somalia successfully isolates Somaliland. Israel remains the only recognizing state. Somaliland gets symbolic recognition, but stays in limbo. Scenario 3, Ethiopia follows. Ethiopia decides the Israeli recognition gives it cover. It formally recognizes Somaliland in exchange for Berbera port access. This changes everything. Ethiopia has 120 million people, regional influence, an economy larger than Somalia's. But it could trigger conflict. Somalia might mobilize forces. Egypt and Turkey could intervene to counter Ethiopia. Scenario 4, compromise special status. The international community brokers a deal. Somaliland doesn't get full independence, but gets special autonomous status within a loose Somalia federation. Like Hong Kong before China tightened control, Somaliland runs its own affairs, but technically remains part of Somalia. Which scenario happens, no one knows, but one thing is certain. After 33 years, the Somaliland question is back on the world stage. Conclusion. Somaliland is a country that shouldn't exist, but does. A democracy in a region of dictatorships, stability in a sea of chaos, self-governance despite international rejection. It's held elections Somalia can't, built institutions Somalia hasn't, achieved peace Somalia won't. Yet Somalia has a UN seat, embassies worldwide, international recognition. Somaliland has none of that, because of a line drawn by British and Italian colonizers over a century ago. Now, for the first time, that's changing. Israel's recognition might be symbolic, it might be strategic opportunism, but for Somaliland, it's hope. The question isn't whether Somaliland deserves recognition. By any practical measure, governance, stability, democracy, it does. The question is whether the international system can accept reality. Whether sovereignty comes from control and legitimacy, or just from colonial-era maps. For 33 years, Somaliland has existed without permission. It built a nation the world refused to acknowledge. And now, finally, someone blinked. What do you think? Should Somaliland be recognized as an independent country? Does stability and democracy matter more than colonial borders? Let us know in the comments. And if you want more deep dives into the hidden conflicts and forgotten regions shaping our world, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching.